I started out, I left high school, and my high school coach was like, I wanted to go to Georgia Southern. I wanted to coach. I knew that early on. I wanted to go to Georgia Southern. And he was like, well, Nate, you're not going to play there for a while. And I was like, oh, I want to go because Coach Hatcher had a pretty good resume at the time, just coming from Valdosta State, winning 2 national championships there and whatnot. So I went to Georgia Southern, stayed in the same dorm with some of the football players in the summer with them, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall at that point. But he let me come on as a student assistant, so I worked with him for 2 years, and then Coach Munkin came in, and that's kind of when I got to do a lot more. We didn't have GAs, so like as an 18-year-old kid, they're like, "Go break down this film," and I'm like, "I have no clue what you're doing." Like, so I was lucky to have some people that kind of taught me and led me in that way. And then when Coach Munkin came in, I had 2 years of kind of experience of doing GA work, and so we didn't have those. And so Coach Davis, because he had no choice, had to rely on me to help him out. And so that was really big for that was kind of when I kind of really started doing some stuff and coaching. So that was a really good experience working with them as a student assistant in GA for a year. And then I stayed with Coach Fritz. When Coach Munkin left and went to Army, I ended up staying with Coach Fritz and GA in there. They offered me a job up at Army late, but I was like, I'm going to try to ride this thing out. I had been with him through April, so halfway through spring ball. So I was like, well, I'm going to just see what this inside zone and power is all about and kind of running this gun triple, because that was kind of what my idea of what I wanted to do was. And then after 2 years with Coach Fritz, I went to GMC, spent 3 years there. And then I got fortunate enough to get the offensive coordinator job with Coach Quinn, being O-line and co-offensive coordinator doing that. So it's been quite a journey to get to this point. This is what I wanted to do, but I just didn't really, you don't know how it's going to work out. So, but working under guys like Brent Davis, Alex Atkins, Coach Munkin, Coach Fritz, and Coach Hatcher, like guys like that. I've been really blessed to work with some really, really good coaches that do 3 totally different things, that have 3 totally different styles, and be able to see kind of how that works. And so it's been a wild ride, but.
Well, Coach, so what years were you at Georgia Southern?
So I was at Georgia Southern 2008 to 2015. So I was there 8 years.
Did you guys play Houston in 2015?
No, we did not
14?
Play Houston in 15. We didn't play Houston. So we played our transition year was 13. That's when we beat Florida. And then we played a Sun Belt schedule, and we played West Virginia and stuff like that. So
okay.
Are you the Houston guy, or is Brady?
Yeah, I played at Houston. I thought it could have been, who knows? It's been 5 years for me, Coach. Yeah. I've been hit a bunch.
Might have been Georgia State too. So
maybe. All right. Well, so the big thing for me is what I was writing down before we even started was, you said, you guys run two plays, inside zone and power. How does that come about? How do you, as an offensive line coach and run game coordinator here in high school, whatever that means? I know it means a little bit more at college. I don't know what it means at the high school level, but working with the run game and the offensive line in high school, that 2 plays almost gave me a heart attack when you said that. It made me nervous just hearing that. How does that – I would assume you got a lot of different tags and different things that you're running off of that. How do you work only having 2 plays into, your run game and being confident with that going into your games?
Yeah, no, it is weird. So we're all about the smoke and mirrors and stuff like that. So we call ourselves a gun triple option team, and that's – that's what we do. We run read zone, basically just read zone option. And sometimes we can do double options, or sometimes we'll add a motion and make it a triple option. But the way we block inside zone, it just takes a lot of reps, because we see a lot of squeeze, scrape, and insert stuff. So I got into that a little bit this year because in the spring we tried to run power versus our defense, and we weren't very good. And so we kind of took it out and had more success with running duo. And so we had a pretty decent amount of success doing it. I was, I understood how to block it, but I didn't do a great job of communicating it to the guys. So going into our first game, we carried or going into camp, we were going to go inside zone and duo, and that was what we were going to major in. Well, we were playing Florida Tech, and they were a heavy power team, and so we had to run power for the defense and inside. And I was like, well, I'll throw some in there for you, you know. Well, and it ended up being pretty good. Like our guys had picked up the fundamentals, and they ended up being pretty good at it. So we ended up carrying power. And as what we found was that the duo play didn't fit what we did. And so after game 4, we kind of took it out and just went basically back to inside zone. And so last year was kind of a weird year for us. Usually I'm a big foundational teacher, but with us having only 18 days, really 18 days before our first game, and not being able to work with those guys in the summer like I had at other places, we just kind of had to go in a different route, and because I didn't get to train them the way I wanted to. And so they weren't fundamentally where I needed them to be. And so looking back on it, and we played 2 teams that lined up in just like a 5-down lineman look. It might have been an odd front. You might call it a double eagle or a bear, whatever it is. But it's like you're not going to run inside zone into that. And so we didn't really run inside zone the first 2 weeks. We did a little bit versus Florida Tech because they were a slant odd team. But we played Lynchburg and Benedict. They just lined up and said, hey, we're bigger than you. Block us. And I'm like, well, you know, I was telling the other offense coordinator, I'm like, we're not going to beat our head against the wall running into a guy that's almost 100 pounds bigger than us at some point.
Right.
You know, so we ended up putting in Dart for that game just because I didn't feel confident in power at that point, because we hadn't, you know, it just wasn't – we weren't good at down blocks. So Dart gave us the best amount of double teams. So I say we only run 2 plays, but at the end of the day, like, we kind of mix and match things into kind of where we need it. But but with the inside zone, the way we block it, it just takes a lot of reps. I tell people this all the time. It's like, if you're not doing what we're doing, like if you're not running gun triple and you're not seeing the squeeze scrape and the random inserts, like you don't need to spend 4 days before you install another play, you know. But with us, so much intricacies that go into timing up the snapping off to the linebacker, or timing up, hey, the linebacker leaves, now I got to train my eyes to transition to my next guy. Those little things, it takes a long time to build. And so kind of the way we install it is the first 4 days we do nothing but inside zone and out our tags. So we have tight end tags, we have running back tags, and then we have receiver tags. And so we just kind of put those in the first 3 to 4 days and just kind of work all our variations off of it. And then we'll go into putting in some powers. But on day 4, when we do it, we only run it in inside. So that way we can make sure we get all our timings on all the other stuff in, because that's the most important thing. For us to get as many reps of banked reps of inside zone as possible so they get the feeling of it, and then getting the motion timing timed up with everything, because that's the hardest part. The hardest part for the quarterback is pulling the thing and stretching it as long as he can and making his decision properly and making sure that he's pitching off the right guy and making sure he's understanding his reads and his keys. So that's kind of why we do it that way. We turned into a big power read team at the end of the year last year. So like jet power, where we're sending them across. So what we did this spring was we put in jet inside zone on day 2 to work the jet motion, work the timing of it. So I can get reps at inside zone. They can get reps at jet timing. And that way we can kind of mix it all together. Because it really doesn't matter what play you run.
Right.
You know, as long it's the motion that needs to be timed up. And we need banked reps at inside zone. And I was listening to one of y'all's podcasts the other day, and like I was saying, I don't know if it was you or whoever, but it builds on each other. Like our guard does the same thing that he does on power with the, you know, on inside zone and power. His footwork's the same on the backside as it is if he's on the front side of power. You know, he's taking the same.
Right.
It's just, if they got an A-gap player, he's a down block. If it's, you know, a 3 technique, it's the same thing. There's no difference, you know.
Right.
So that's kind of what we try to do, is just build on levels and get banked reps in that regard. So just get simple, because at the end of the day with what we do, they have to stop the inside zone or they have to stop the quarterback. They can't do both, you know. And so that's kind of what we rely on in that regard. So
Coach, I have written down here, I was curious with with your inside zone, with having all these tags, 4 different days of your different tags and reading and triple reading off of it. My 2 questions are: do your linemen need to know every tag? Does every maybe not every, maybe not the receivers tags, but does every running back tag change something for them? And then my second question is, are you guys blocking that as far as like zone scheme, or are you more number system like what I think of when I think of a triple option team?
No, we block it just like a normal inside zone. So we want to get as vertical as possible on our inside zone. So we'll quote unquote declare the front the same way that you would in that regard. Like, so I'm taking my front side combo to the front side backer. I'm taking my backside combo to the linebacker backside, and I'm trying to work a vertical double team and work it vertical, all 9 yards. So we do, some people are getting into it a little bit more now, but Coach Atkins, when we were kind of starting this, because Coach Atkins, when he got to Georgia Southern, we tried to block it the backside traditionally where the tackle like dropped and tried to reach it. Well, what ended up happening is we weren't athletic enough. So is what we started doing is washing that backside double team down. So we talked to a couple people and ended up finding out that I think it was Brent Grimes is who he ended up talking to, because Coach McGee was at Auburn before he got there. He takes a lateral with his freshmen on the backside. And so is what we ended up finding out was that the lateral is kind of the key. And so I've talked to a bunch of different people, and some of them are doing it similarly, but our main objective on the double team is to get the backside tackle or the center, whoever it is working, to overlap and get a vertical double team pushing it vertical. So there's no difference in that on the inside zone aspect of it. The count system kind of counts outside, but we're trying to work vertical double teams no different than anyone blocks inside zone. So it's not our zone is vertical and we're sitting on the butt of the center, and we're really trying to push the ball front side, ideally. Like, so if I got an open B gap on the front side, I want that ball to sit on the center's butt and cut to the B gap. Front B gap, not backside B gap. So we're trying to push everything front side to make them fit and fill over there, and they have to declare. Because if you, with the way they play, they scrape to the quarterback. Well, if the ball bends back to the quarterback, that's where everyone's at. So right. We're trying to keep the running back, and it's kind of opposite of the under center triple. And it took me a little while to kind of process it, because I'm like, well, we called 12, and I was triple to the right, and the B back is crushing through that dang right off the guard's butt, and he's crushing it in there. And so we did some gun stuff when we a little bit in 11, 12, and 13 when we were Georgia Southern. And we could never get the double teams on the same level. And the ball would bend back naturally, and everybody would be sitting in the hole. And so it was like, so after kind of experiencing that, now we based under center and then did the other, then did the gun stuff. So when we went full inside zone, it was like we had traditional guys that have run traditional offenses kind of putting this stuff together. So like we have very base traditional concepts that roll into it. So it's no like, you probably block inside zone the same exact way I do.
Right. With inside zone, and the reason, like you're talking about, we've always taught that we want to, and it's more like duo, which I don't really understand all the differences, but it's more like duo where we want to bend it back behind that big double team the way that we teach it. It's tight, it's center to backside of inside zone. Right. With you guys wanting to hit it out the front side, how do you teach your front side guard and tackle? Because that's always I think the most difficult part. If the tackle has a 5, you don't want to get beat inside, but if you just play underneath them right now, it seems like now you're condensing that hole the running back can go to. Same thing if the guard has a front side 3 technique, you want that in, you want it to go in A gap. You would like to get that guy stretched, but also you don't want him to get beat underneath immediately. Is it right? What's that path like? How are you teaching those guys? That's where when we don't bend it back, that's where I just have such a hard time, I think, coaching that front side.
So a lot of it, and this sounds terrible because I've talked to a bunch of people and they're like, well, do you like running the zone to the lowest technique? And I'm like, I don't care. because I can recruit. So that's the difference, you know. And that's where I get into some with high school coaches. I'm like, your guard's 240. You can't block that guy. Run it to the lowest technique. I'm with you.
Right.
Check the play. Get him set that way. And we had to do that some this year. You know, we had to do it where it's like I told the other guy, I'm like, hey, look, you got to call this formation to call this play. Because if DJ gets a 3 technique, this boy's a freshman that's never played in a college game, and he's going against a fifth-year senior. He's
right.
You know, so we do have to do that in some scenarios. But when we get good, is what I tell them is just split manipulation. So, like, if I got a 5 technique and I know that they're not going to be a heavy blitz team, well, go get a 4-foot split and just step inside foot and just get your butt in the way, you know. And that's kind of how we've done it. And then you start to see spiking ends, and so then you have to cut it back down and you have to adjust it on the run. But for the most part, you're pretty good. And so it's just when you start getting that 4-foot split and he starts to spike, now you got to cut it back down. And one of our base drills that we do every day is zone versus movement, because that's kind of what people try to do to us. They try to move eventually. So we practice movement every single day. Our defense probably blitzes us in practice like 50 to 60% of the time. That's what they do.
So when you get that front side shade, and this is to me always the $1 million question. I think I've gone back and forth on it, you know, every year. But you get that front side shade, or maybe not a tight shade, a loose shade. Are you sending your guard now with your tackle, or are you keeping your guard with your center on that front side?
So I've done it both ways. At GMC, we had to do it where we stepped opposite foot. I really like to tell my guys, if we're running zone left, step left foot first. So the way that I would prefer to do it is that the left guard, he takes a step with his left foot, whether it's a timing step or a lateral, just to pick it up, put it down, check the knee of the end. If the end doesn't come, then I'm tracking back vertical. Kind of tell our guys is, now my center's a pretty good player for the most part, so he can handle the initial movement on a shade. And so is what we tell the guard is that the guard, or that shade, is playing the A gap. His job is to not get reached by the center. If he gets reached by the center, then he's screwed up. And if he gets reached by the center, I'm telling my center to take a tight lateral vertical, and he's really bad. So is what I'm telling him is to check it and then track vertical to the linebacker, and it gets back on our same paths. And is what he'll naturally do is he'll just bump it. And so it's weird, you know. It doesn't sound like, you know, you're like that really, but we use the defense's momentum against them.
Right.
So we get a natural bump. It's not a step back. You'll see, if I showed you some of our film from last year, you'll see our guys, the guards, stepping back into the shade. We've kind of gotten them out of it now that we've got
more of a vertical step.
Yeah, but we want them to work vertical and just tap it, because the hip's going to naturally turn to you. Like, it's going to naturally turn to the guard because that guy's trying to torque his hip and play the gap. And so I didn't see much shade going into that. You know, it was all 2-eye, 2-eye, 2-eye. At Georgia Southern, we didn't see a shade hardly ever.
Gotcha.
Then I got to GMC, and it was like 50-50, whether it was a shade or a 2-eye. We got to when we got to Savannah State, we would see a lot of 2-eyes on film. But when they played us, because we had such big guards, we had a really experienced guard at left guard that was a really good player. And we have a massive right guard. He's 6'5", like 320. And so they didn't want to play in a 2-eye because they knew they would get a nice double team with the center, because we run everything out of the tight pistol. And so they don't have like a key where they can like set the front to the back. So we got a lot more shade, and it was kind of what you were saying, that loose shade. We got loose 3 techniques that try to come tight off the hip because they didn't.
Right.
They knew if our guard touched them, they were done. And so, because just in our league, just in D2 in general, you might get a more athletic guy, but he's not 6'6".
So let me ask you with this as well. Are you giving the center, so now it's inside zone left, and there's a 3 technique to the play side. Are you teaching your center with a shade? Or, you know, I know you don't see it a ton, but a shade on the backside. Are you still teaching him to get vertical on the second step, or is he selling out with the 3?
Nope, he's getting vertical. So he's taking it's the same. It's no different, and that's kind of where it comes in because, in theory, like we can play anyone in any position because they all take the same footwork, and so this is how it kind of transitions. The guard, if I'm at left guard, I step, check the knee of the 5, and then I get back vertical. If I'm at center, I step. I'll take a drop step at center because I got to get back on the same level. Check the knee. If the knee's not there, now I'm tracking vertical. And it's a little bit different for the center because he's actually the one getting attacked. So I tell him, you better brace if that 3 doesn't come because he's attacking you. So he knows if he doesn't see the knee, tell him to key the knee. If the knee doesn't come, he's now tracking back vertical through it. And now hopefully we can get a second level cut off of it. So is what we're trying to get is the back to get into the line, stay in front side, and then he makes his second level cut. So he might end up naturally bending it back to the gap, but it's at the second level, not at the first level. And so this is where it gets even deeper into it. The left guard's footwork is uncovered. He's uncovered, so now he's going to lateral to overtake it, which is the same footwork that the tackle would take with a 3 technique on the back, lateral. Or the center would take with a 2-eye. So in theory, I can transition and change. Like I can literally play my 5 best players at any point to be able to come in because their footwork doesn't change. The only difference that we do is a pull, And so that's where you get into a little bit of the variation. But in reality, 60% of our offense, like it's the same. So, and that's been the good part about it is that you're getting a lot of banked reps and building and building and building. So, but if we just lined up in 2x2 and just ran inside zone like that all day with no motion, we would get jacked up pretty good, because that's just, you have to have candy. You have to have eye candy for the defense. You have to force them to fit in different spots and key motions and give them a bunch of misdirections.
How does that work with your offensive line? Because being an offensive lineman at one point in my life, I mean, as a coordinator, I understand it and I get it and I get what it does to defenses. But as a left tackle or as a guard, I've made my points. I know who I'm wanting to work to. Now all of a sudden we get motion, coming opposite of inside zone, and now guys are rocking or guys are moving, and now all the things have changed, or maybe edge pressure comes. Do your guys need to hear those motions? Are they just aware on any inside zone they're probably getting motion, so they need to track to a spot? How does that work for your guys?
So is our basic rules of it is we block gap first. So that's how we start. Like when I draw it up on the board, I just draw a lateral vertical line going straight vertical up the field. And when they walk in the door and we say zone left, I'll ask the left tackle, what gap do you have? Coach, I have the C gap. And down the line. And everybody's got the gap to the left. That's their number 1 priority. All right. The number 2 priority is, okay, what is initially in my gap? Okay. So, all right, what do you have, left tackle? Well, coach, I have a 5 technique. Okay. Well, he's playing the C gap. So what are you going to do to him? Coach, I'm going to base block him. Very good. And it's that simple, And so then we kind of worked on the line. Hey, I got a 3, right? Well, I'm thinking initially I'm going to base block it. Center. All right. What are you doing? Well, I'm going to step and check the knee of the 3 technique. If there's nothing in the A gap, then I'm going to track vertical to the next thing in the A gap, which is the initial point, which is the linebacker. And so and that's when we get in this phase 2 of it is, well, once that linebacker scrapes and clears my cylinder, now I know it is gone from the A gap. Now I got to go track to the next thing. And so we kind of work it. And that's why we do it for 4 days, because we have to work every phase. We have to work the base blocks first. Then we have to work the zone versus movements. That's why we do it every day. We work base blocks, we work zone versus movements, and we work basically a fight the flatten drill where you're just working the double team, trying not to get pressed down. And we work those things every single day until they get comfortable with it. Okay, now let's add a linebacker into it. So now you got to block the linebacker. Okay, now the linebacker's moving. And so we just kind of work through those things. But it takes a lot of time, And I have people ask me about it, and they're like, well, we kind of want to dabble in this. And I'm like, well, you got to be careful with that. Because if dudes are stable, it's easy to block a linebacker that's sitting in the B gap that plays downhill in the B gap.
Right.
it's not hard to block a 3 technique that spikes and a backer that fills and replaces. You know what I mean? But when one snap, they sit there and play the A gap, and then the next snap, they scrape across, and then the next snap, the safety comes and inserts in the A gap, or, the 3 technique moves, you're getting edge pressure. That's a lot of stuff. And it's a lot of eye training. That's all we do. We really just train our eyes to stay in our gap and not get caught. And so that's why we only run 2 plays, because there's so much variations, and we have to be able to literally pick up every answer a defensive coordinator has. So,
Coach, you're talking about, your lateral, and then the overlap. What's kind of the aiming point for the guy? Because I know you hear something different from everybody. Some guys are, we keep our face out of it and we don't put our eyes there, our hands or our shoulders. I always think it's interesting to hear, what is he looking to do, or where is he looking to put his, whatever you want to call it, landmark. How is he fitting up when he's going to be the lateral guy?
So is what we're looking to do is we're looking to get our eyes to the V of the neck of defender, because that's what our base job is on a base block. So if I'm the center and I'm lateral and two eye, I want to take a lateral step, get my eyes to the V of the neck of the defender, and then engage. So in theory, people say 4 hands, 4 eyes, whole 9 yards. I want the guy who's in the B gap to have his 2 eyes in the B gap and 1 hand in the block. And then I want the center, let's say it's with the 2 eye, I want that center to lateral, get his eyes to the V of the neck of the defender, and he should have 1 hand basically on the back and 1 hand starting to engage. So, and that's kind of the way I teach it when it comes to that, because I want him to get literally to your aiming point. And then after that, it just transitions to, well, now on the backside, if I'm the backside tackle, lateral into a 3 technique, I know on the backside of my zone, I want to try to cut it off and reach it. So now I'm going to really go strong inside hand and lock it out and try to work it up. With the center, now he's just kind of taking it where it needs to go, because he's where the zone's going. He's taking the zone where it needs to go. So he'll stay where he needs to stay. And if the guy plays outside, let's say we get a bad double team, then he might turn it into a wash and it'll be a backside A-gap cut. But ideally, he's squaring it up, tracking it vertical, and taking it where it needs to go, because the guard's doing a good job in that regard.
So you're teaching the backside overlap just a little bit different than say, kind of, your center or maybe a front side one, just simply because obviously the ball is going to be kind of behind the center, whereas if you're the tackle, the ball is kind of hitting in front of him.
Yeah, and I wouldn't really say it – the way I teach it, they don't see it any different, because they're going on inside hand on inside zone. So, like, if I'm the right tackle and we're running zone left, well, he knows he's got to go strong with his left hand instead of going strong with his right hand, because it's his left gap. So he's got to keep that guy in the B gap and go strong left hand. And by doing that, it just kind of works it out the same. So I'm not going to lie to you, last season, because I didn't have enough time with him, like, they kind of turned that almost into a down block sometimes early on in the year. And then we finally got him understanding, like, no, you're really trying to actually get vertical and go strong inside hand here, not just cover it up and wash it down. So it's that was one of the interesting things that we had with that. So
I like that coaching point, though. Talking about the hand pressure, kind of which arm I got to go long with. I think that makes a good visual of those guys. I like that coaching point.
Coach, I'm curious, we're looking to, possibly get into a little bit more pistol this year, and run some different things, not necessarily zone triple, but some things out of pistol. The big argument I always hear, or I always get pushback on, is that it's difficult for pass protection for those tailbacks to go out of pistol. What's with 6-man, general drop back protection, what is your answer? What do you guys do with that tailback when he's in pistol? How does that work out for you, for you guys? Because that's been my only big pushback ever when trying to get a little bit more pistol in our offense.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, I'll go ahead and say that, because we run a short pistol, so we're at like 6 inches behind. And we were going back through our spring cut-ups and looking at it. And like I said, our defense is a heavy pressure team. So we're trying to run play action, basically 6-man protection, half slide on the front side, lock the backside. The back's taking his slide and trying to get into the line, and the backer's in her face. And so we do struggle with some of that. In my personal opinion, I think you just got to base it off of the tendencies that you're seeing. If you're going to see, like in 3rd down and 6, and you got a heavy middle pressure team or a heavy edge pressure team in that scenario, like don't put them in pistol. But if you know on 1st down and 10 that the blitz probability is only like 20%, roll the dice on that one. And that's kind of how we look at it. We're not going to call and we tell our backs this. We used to call like, hey, back, line up right. Hey, back, line up left. Hey, do this. Hey, do that. But then we just kind of started teaching them, like the quarterback's coach, who's the running back's coach also. I just tell them to line up, mix it up. Like, I don't really care, because that's another word we have to add to our deal for no reason, And so by about week 6, they just figured it out, and you'd see him lining up. I'd be like, what is he doing over there? I don't know, coach. I mean, it's just where he wanted to line up. Sometimes he'll come across the face and whatnot. So we just kind of give him a mix of deals. But I agree with you in that scenario. Like, it is not easy to protect. It's not. Now maybe maybe going full slide, that would help you out. But, it does give you a huge disadvantage in that regard, trying to pick up a backer who's blitzing through the B gap, or picking up an A gap pressure on the backside, or the side that he's supposed to block with his key coming. So we try to limit our pistol in that scenario. But like our 1st and 2nd down stuff, we'll do it out of pistol. Anytime we're faking a triple, we'll do it out of pistol. And so sometimes we'll get burned on that, but the back's usually going through the line hard enough that he gets in the way good enough, and our quarterback can run. So we get out of it. But we try to really predicate it off of tendencies going in the game. Like, hey, look, if we get a big play here, do not put the back in pistol. You better make sure he's offset, because they're going to blitz, and we have those tendencies drawn up for us. And we know we have a pretty good idea of what we think is going to happen. So, but we only like I said, we don't throw the ball probably 20% of the time, maybe 25, depending upon the game. So we're hoping to do it a little more this year, but
sure. Well, and I'm assuming some of that's off play action. What's your go-to, or what are some of your favorite play action protections that give a good look to the defense, but leave you with a good protection as well? I think that's where, again, I always fall into, man, this stuff looks really pretty, and the guys throwing it would love to do it, but scares me on the protection side of it. What's your go-to as far as a good look and makes you comfortable protecting?
So our base one that we do is just a basic 7-man play action protection where we're going full slide. So, we'll send motion and we'll go full slide left, have the tight end in there, have the back fake. He's able to clean up. And we kind of tell him, it's kind of weird. We tell him to go inside out and go A to B to the backside C to clean up whatever's left. And so that way we get a really good sell on it. That's kind of our base one. The other one we do is just a half slide lock protection. We'll half slide left, lock the right side. The back will play fake. He usually play fakes to the slide side, and then he'll bend it back and go A gap to B gap to edge. So those are really the only 2 protections we run. We put in a little bit of naked stuff here, just experiment with that to kind of give us another look at it. But those are kind of our base ones, and we feel like we're pretty gapped out and sound in that regard. But we're really not – that's not what we were built for last year, was protecting. Me and the other guy would get into arguments. Like, I'm like, dude, you got to throw the ball. He's like, I don't trust him to throw the ball. And I'm like, well, I get that. I don't trust him to protect, but we can't, and we're going back and forth like, well, like we got to do something. So until they got kind of comfortable with it. But we've kind of started to go into we're starting to really look at the RPO stuff, just because it's a really easy way to basically protect without because we do so much run stuff. It's really simple to just, hey, we're going to block inside zone, gives a little bit more of a self fake, and then throw the ball behind their head, because we're getting such heavy boxes. So, throwing a glance by one or glance by two, doing stuff like that. So.
Well, Coach, the other thing that you had talked about that I had written down, you talked about being one of those 1,000 rep guys, and that's something that I grew into as a coach. I was like that as a player, but then as I became a coach, it was like, and that was I used to work for Coach Walls, and our head coach was an NFL offensive lineman as well for 10 years, and their big gripe with me the whole time was I was stopping individual or stopping things too much to get, that perfect technique or that perfect footwork. And so that was causing us to go way down in our reps. And I think the more that I've coached, the more that I kind of start getting into the more reps they can get, the more they start feeling it, the more their body figures it out. And yes, I got to coach them. I got to give them tips. We got to talk about it on film, but the more times they can do that, the more times they figure out what their body needs to do. Being 1,000 rep type of coach, is that something that you build your individual and build inside off of being able to get a bunch of reps, or is that what you're expecting them to do outside of their own practice? How does that work for you with your guys?
So I look at it in 4 phases, kind of the way we roll with it. So when I was at GMC, when I was at Georgia Southern, it's whenever they started to transition the rule. And so we were able to basically work with guys in spring ball, do drills with them for an hour in the summer or however much it was, I don't even remember, and then get to spring ball and then go from there. You know what I'm saying? And then you get to camp and they're boned up and ready to go. So I went against my whole philosophy this year, and I knew that was going to be going in. And that's why after the 3rd game, I was like, look, we got to scrap everything and go back to day 1 because we're seeing 4 down the rest of the year, and we got to be prepared for that. So, that's why I think we had 184 total yards versus Morehouse. We had 225 total yards versus Charleston Southern. Then we played Alcorn, and we had 284 total yards, and we started to pick up. Then we played Clark Atlanta in that monsoon that happened in the South. So we threw the ball twice that game. But we had 325 yards rushing. Then we went to Albany, and we just started to build on it because that's just the way we were. And I'm not I got this from Coach Fritz, I don't think, the more reps I give a guy in a day, that's not going to make him a better player. It's built over time. So, rep management is a big deal for me. I don't want a guy to go take 20 team reps in a day, especially when he's coming in the camp. So we try to limit reps and really monitor them. I try to really do it with my guys because I don't want them to take a bad rep. So we start off camp taking 3 reps a team at a time. You don't get more. You get 3. That's it. Then you get a break. And then depending upon how deep we are, you might get 9 reps versus the defense in a team setting if we run 18 plays. That's it. But they're good quality reps. You're fresh. And then you get a real good feeling because once they get tired, they just blank out and they're done. They have no concept of what's going on. So when I talk to them, I want them to feel what it feels like to be successful. And we talk about that. Where did you feel that good rep occur? Well, Coach, I don't really know. I just got lucky, I guess. Okay, well, let's go back and understand where you need to feel it. Because I think as playing an O-line, you got to feel the repetitions. I'll go do reps with them because I want to feel what that guard's doing because we're just limited on numbers sometimes. So I'll just go take a rep.
Right.
Break in a certain period. But I want them to feel hey, look, this guy's not doing their job properly, or no, he's doing his job fine. You're overcompensating for no reason. And so I just want them to get a feeling of it. And so we kind of build it through that. And so that's why I loved having spring ball early this year. Now, I didn't get the benefits of actually having spring. I did, but I didn't because I didn't get to fix what we were struggling with. So in theory is what we were trying to do was get spring ball done, see what issues we had, fix those issues throughout April and May, and then June and July, we can't do anything with them in D2, but they have a great foundation and know exactly what they need to work on in the summer. And then boom, when we get to fall camp, hopefully they're that much far ahead. But at GMC, like as soon as the season ended, they came in the weight room the next week, and it was like, all right, we're back doing base one, day one, like, and you just break it down further. So the further you are away from a camp or spring ball, whatever it is, you just break it down. And as you get closer to that, you start to build on those fundamentals. So we'll just work in the weight room, one step, punching, like making sure they're taking a good step and timing up their hands and their feet. All right. And then we'll take 2 steps and punch the next week. And then we'll do certain things. So like just during this time, I just been having them get on a knee, drive their knee into the ground and work vertical, and work on just driving that knee into the ground and feeling that quote unquote drive catch and working it. So, because if they go take steps, like it's not going to be beneficial because no one's coaching them, and I had one coach that used to get on me. He's like, don't let them do drills by themselves because they'll develop bad habits. And I was like, yeah, you're not wrong on that regard, because you don't want someone to take 1,000 back reps. So limit what they can do and put it into like a small box that builds the base fundamental of it and then add it. Because they've taken over 1,000 steps with me by this point, some of the guys,
Right.
I mean, kid played last year. So, they've all been in games. All but one of them have been in a game. So you have that foundation now. Now let's fix what we're struggling with.
Coach, you talked about, protecting with the tight end, are you guys running the zone both directions? You guys run it at the tight end, and you have an open side on the back side, and then obviously run it back to the weak side with the tight end, cutting off. Sometimes I felt like that could kind of, mess with guys as far as targets are concerned. Do you guys run it both ways? And if you do, how do you guys kind of communicate that? Or do you have maybe different play call to a tight end as opposed to the weak side?
So we don't ever change. So for the O-line, is all they hear is zone right. Like you asked that question earlier. The tag does not affect them at all. Like no tag tells our O-line to do anything except for we put in a lock tag. Or we'll say Bob, and they'll be big on the backside. But if any other thing besides Bob, which we don't really run that much, any other tag we have, they're into the call. And so that's kind of what we do. We'll put the tight end on the backside, and we can call our just inside zone give. And if he's on the line, he'll reach and cut it off. We're not very successful at that. A majority of our stuff comes from the Y off position. But we'll put them on the front side a good amount of times because what it does is it gives them an extra gap to fill. And so we'll get in just tight end wing nub and then twins to the other side. And that always gives defensive coordinators fits. Or we can just move the tight end to the other side and make it look like 3x1 with a nub on the other side. And we usually run zone into it, or we read that side. We don't usually ask our tight end to cut off. Hey, go cut that guy off. We rarely do that. We usually keep him on the front side. Cause like you said, that is hard to do, especially when it's not something that we major in.
Yeah. That technique with tight ends, especially, you get those good 6 techniques, man, that's difficult. And I think when you do put him off, it makes it a lot easier. So now he can kind of, like you said, he's already in that overlap position with the tackle. And he can kind of get his hat in the crack as opposed to now having to really, really drive, catch, and reach that dude.
And we ask our tight ends to do so much, with loading the box, making sure that you're, hey, you got to know on this play to go, block the first defender outside. On this play, you got to know to come around. And so it just matches our offense better to do it from Y off. So that's kind of what we ended up sticking with in that regard. But yeah, it's a hard block. Like you got to be a bona fide dog to do that. Like we have great athletes, but that's just not something we major in with them. No.
Coach, you talked jet motion or fast motion, however you want to call it, at the beginning, and talked about how important that timing was since you guys are in the pistol. If you've got to go, and maybe you haven't, maybe you guys don't or whatever, but if you've got to go silent count, how are you guys getting that timed up? As an offensive lineman, I hate silent count, but I think that probably, quarterbacks and coordinators love it. And so we get into it at times. And I think the most difficult part, obviously, is for tackles and pass protection. But one of the most difficult is timing up those jet motions. How do you guys work that? Obviously, I'm sure you work it a ton. It sounds like even on plays that you may not do it most of the time, you're still getting that jet motion work. How do you time that up as far as cadence-wise or working with your center and quarterback?
So with the way we've ended up working it out is we don't – I guess – we just do your basic clap, that's kind of what we do with that. So we don't have a silent count. But so the good thing for us is as soon as he hears the clap, he knows exactly how much the center is consistent with his snap every time. So making sure that that's uniform, and that goes in the motion time and stuff. But we always snap it we're either right at the tackle or just outside of it. And the quarterback's kind of got to know what guy's going in motion, because
right,
one guy, you better snap it when you're outside the tackle. If it's the other guy, you're good to snap it anywhere. And we usually read the jet. We don't normally just pitch it out there. But our quarterback coach and our other offense coordinator does a great job of it. That's one of the things that he does a really great job is coaching that power read, keeping that quarterback tight and making the read quick. I was not a big fan of power read because of the mesh charges that you get running up the field.
Mm-hmm.
With the timing that he has developed with them snapping it at that point and the read for the quarterback, I'd probably say about 60% of the time, quarterback can pull it or give it and he's right, just because they don't have enough time to react. And so now we do enough with running Q power or running the jet and handing off the ball to the back. But our main thing is jet power read. That's what we ended up majoring in towards the end of the year. But it's just something that with our offense, it's not primary for them to defend. They better learn how to squeeze. They better learn how to fit the zone. And when the guy goes in jet motion, that's okay, that's my day 2 work. We played Fort Valley and they spent a lot of their time on making sure that the ball didn't get outside on the power read. And so we just ran the quarterback right up the middle, and we had very good success on that because they tried to run up the field, and the quarterback and that's the thing I was telling one of my buddies the other day when we were meeting, and he was explaining to him, it's just 2 quite quick shuffles and keep it tight. And every time I pause the film, he's right behind that tackle and he's able to insert in. So I think just making sure the quarterback doesn't get too elongated and making sure that the snap, if the quarterback doesn't get too elongated, you can be a little bit slow or a little bit fast and get away with it. And so that's kind of what we try to do with it. Just keep the quarterback as tight as possible and not get strung out. Because once he starts to get strung out, that's when your inconsistencies go. But we'll have many a time where the snap's a little high right and we are a little late on it and we keep it and we got to get what we can get. So we just kind of take that. If that happens 1 out of 50 or 2 out of 50 times, I'll take that, Now, and then the quarterback he'll know, if the snap starts to go right, well, I need to snap it a little bit earlier, So it's a lot on the quarterback, really, to be honest with you.
Well, I completely agree with you on that. That's always been my issue with most power reads is you see that big 2 or 3 shuffles, and now because he wants to ride that thing out as long as possible. Well, now when it's a keep read, now he is way too wide for the way that we're blocking power. We'd have to almost put in a completely new play for it. Whereas opposed, like you said, 2 short, quick shuffles, he can get inside and stay inside of our kick out.
And I mean, it's not and that's one thing we were starting to do it with back offset and did it with the back coming across. We just didn't have a fast enough back to hit the edge enough. And so that read got muddied up because it wasn't happening fast enough.
So now do you send that tailback out to lead for the jet sweep?
Yeah, he'll lead for the jet sweep. And so depending upon our formation, he'll either block the high safety or if there's not a receiver out there, he'll go block the first guy outside. And
how do you teach your pulling guard? Because I've had times where I've been coached to read the defensive end, and if the end scrapes, I'm going to open at the last second and get around them because now I know that it's going to be a give key. And then I've also heard coaches just say, hey, just block it like it's going to be power, because you're probably not going to be able to block for the guy if he gives it anyways. How are you teaching the pulling guard?
Yeah, so with the guard, it's everything stays the same. So it's kind of nice. So when we first put it in, we treat it like power. So the right tackle, he'll end up kind of chasing the backside linebacker that's coming across. But I tell my guard to stay tight and insert. And then after we kind of master that, then is what I tell the tackle is, hey, treat this like our normal inside zone. If the guy runs over the top, don't worry about him. Just stay on track. So when that's like one of the few times they have to listen for a word. When they hear, hey, look, it's power read. Okay, like I know it's power this. So on read, I just track, and the guard does the same thing. He stays tight. And so he just finds the tackle's butt and inserts, and he'll block the first thing he sees. So we don't want him to chase, because I'm not going to get there. We're not athletic enough to do it.
Right.
If I had some dudes like at the upper level, I might change that. I might be like, hey, chase that guy, because you can kick him out, whereas my guards can't do that. And so just with our athletic ability at GMC, like when I had some dudes, I didn't coach it the way I do now. I told them to chase it, track it a little bit more. Whereas now I'm just like, hey, insert, there's motion going everywhere. These dudes, you don't know what you're going to get, just go. And
Right.
so I kind of work it that way. So I've done it both ways, but the way that's easiest for the kids is just stay on track and just roll tight. And so we don't lock on men. And it fits what we do, because we don't lock on linebackers whenever we block our zone. So for them, it's a really easy concept to just kind of transition to the next one. But that's hard when you're running zone and you're locking on that backer and you're saying, hey, you got that guy no matter what. And you're transitioning your zone and they're locking on one dude, and their eyes aren't trained to move when they move. So like you gotta kind of do it fit you, you know what I mean? So
if you're doing it in that 20 personnel look, with the the Y off, are you putting him on the front side and arcing him out? Are you putting him on the back side of it, letting the tailback go? Or how does that work when you're doing it? Because it makes sense to me in my head in 10 personnel. I'd love to do it out of 20. I just don't know, I guess, the schematics of where I'm putting that 20 personnel fullback on power read.
right. So when we do power read, is what we're doing is we'll put him on either side depending upon what we feel. Majority of the time, he's going to the side of it. So we're going to put him, if we're running power read right, he'll be normally on the right side. And so with the tight end, we just tell him to count. So the receiver's got the first guy, the next receiver's got the second guy, and you got the third. And so we have tags that tell them what to do. So we would call it A, because the A is getting the ball. So we say A power read. Well, A power read tells you to block the third guy. If we just said power read, well, then you'd be blocking the second guy because we don't have a third blocker.
Gotcha.
Kind of treat it that way. So it's not, like I said, it's not hard. Like if you look at it, it's just, you can't overcomplicate it. But then when you get into some jacked up looks, that's when you have to teach the guy to count. Like, hey, look, you got the third guy. Like you're responsible for one, you're responsible for two, you're responsible for the third guy, however it fits out inside 5 yards. We usually let the high safety go. So that's kind of the way we roll with that in that regard. So we try, like I said, we try to keep it as simple as possible and match the rules up. But the rules on their inside zone stuff match the power read stuff.
Gotcha.
Which makes it a lot better. So we'll get 3 guys outside on the whole deal most of the times whenever we're doing it. But we just always let the high safety go in that regard. So it's just trying to keep it simple and match up the rules as much as possible to where they don't have to think. You see that, right?
Yeah. We can see it.
So yeah, that's kind of the way we work it out there.
Gotcha.
But out of every formation and every personnel group to kind of help us out depending upon what we need. And so we'll get an unbalanced and do it. And this is kind of this is one of our bread and butters. So, but it transitions the same way.
What's your coaching point for your quarterback on the read part of it?
So he just has to make a feel for it. He has to have a feel for what is like. He's just got to feel the end. And like I said, 60% of the time he's not wrong or right. But
Gotcha.
if he feels him wide and like he'll look at him, if the guy's sitting there, he'll just hand it off. You know, if he's running up the field, he just kind of reads his movements on it. We don't like overcoach it too much in that regard because we actually did overcoach a lot of our reads early on with this zone read and with the power read. There's a lot of gray area with it, and the quarterback's got to trust it. You know, like the quarterback's got to feel confident in what he's doing because if he second guesses himself, then he's not going to play fast. So we want him to play as fast as possible. And so he doesn't feel anything coming out, then boom, he's hitting that thing underneath. And we just try to keep it as simple as possible. Give the guys the most freedom to play. That's kind of our philosophy on it. So and we'll run jet counter and stuff like that off of it. So when people start to overplay, we can come back and just really everything, like I said, is predicated off the motions. So we set it up going inside zone triple. Once you start to defend that, now we take it to the next level of how we kind of adjust it. So you start to jet with motion. Now we'll come back with counter. Now you start to overplay. Hey, you're playing your end straight up the field. Okay, well, we're not going to read anymore. We're just going to say, hey, quarterback, keep it. You know, and we kind of just manipulate it on how they're playing us. And so as a play caller, it's really simple because it's like almost like a formula. If they do this, then we'll do this. If they do this, then we'll do this. And we just kind of work our way down the line with it. So that's the good part about it. Like you're not sitting in there being like, well, dang, we got to run GT counter now. You know,
right.
Do this. And that's how we were at GMC. And, you know, like that stuff worked. But it was hard for me because I wasn't used to that. And it took me like a year and a half to kind of get used to like, smokes, like, okay, like we got to block this play, then we got to block this play, and then we got to block that play. And just trying to match them all together, which was a great learning experience for me because except for GT counters, really the only play I haven't ever really coached. And so it's been nice. So maybe this year we'll get into some GT counter. So I don't know.
Heck yeah.
But all my friends are like, Coach, you got to do GT counter. And I'm like, but they always tell me when they run GT counter, they're like, when we got a little too heavily involved in it. Like we got a little too deep in that and kind of got away from it. So I'm like, you know, I don't want to get too far into it. So it's a hard mix to find because like it's scary going out there running two plays. Like it's scary.
Yeah, I bet.
You know? So, but you have to be confident they're going to execute. And that's the thing. So, but.
Do you guys get a bunch of different looks than what you think you're going to get because of your style of offense?
No.
It's
weird. So I've had some people that tell me like, yeah, we kind of spend a day just practicing a bunch of different looks. I'm not a believer in that. I don't believe that. I think defensive coordinators. Now, I've talked to my guys in high school, and if I was in high school, I'd probably do a little bit more of that because, you know, in high school you have a little more tendency just to flip a switch and go in a different direction, you know. But in college, defensive coordinators are trained. Their mental process always works the same. And it didn't matter if I was at Georgia Southern, GMC, or now at Savannah State. Whatever we saw on tape is what I've gotten. And I've had 5 years of that. Now, you might know like a defensive coordinator doesn't play heavy odd, but he might transition to a little bit more odd. We saw that some in Albany State. Like, hey, they're 30% odd. Well, they're probably going to be 50% odd because that's their second answer to things. And so I just kind of build it out as an answer sheet like, okay, here's their answers to stop X, Y, and Z. And so as they start to do those things, those other things, then we start to get into 12 personnel where we know we're going to get base looks and get into funky formations that really just force them to go to their base defense. So.
When you're recruiting or when you're putting an offensive line up there with this style of an offense, where are you trying to put your dude, like in theory?
At guard.
A guard?
Yeah, you got to have a pretty good guard. You can get away with having an average tackle. Like my left tackle was a freshman this year. He was an athlete, but he was a freshman, and I got away with playing him, starting him, and we won 7 games with him. So with that being said, like he was 6'1", 240. Like he wasn't anything special. Like I wasn't like fired up about trotting him out there every week. But
Right.
like I said, with the split manipulation and stuff, the tackle doesn't have to be your best player, but you got to have a guy that can base block the 3 technique. And so I was fortunate enough last year to have 2 dudes that could base block 3 techniques that I felt really comfortable with and confident in doing that. When we were at Georgia Southern, I had 2 guys that could block 3 techniques. Every year we had guys that could just base block 3s. And so that's really, I guess, the foundational part of it. The next most important part would be the center. And then when you start to get athletic tackles, that's when you can do some really start to get really exotic in it. So, but.
Well, I got you. Well, Coach, kind of, rolling up on an hour now, but the thing that I always like to ask guys before we cut them loose is when you're watching, a high school or even a college offensive line, what's some things they'd be doing that would make you think highly of their offensive line coach?
Well, I just like watching guys that play with effort. That's like our number one deal. Like the first thing we talk about every day is like, you are going to play with exceptional effort, no ifs, ands, or buts. And I'm going to coach them on it. And so I think like looking at guys, the way they play hard, especially when you watch D2 stuff, like, everybody's got a deficiency. And so like if dudes are playing hard, that's number one. And then when they start to pick up like blitzes and stuff like that, that's when like these kids are pretty coached up. Fundamentals are good. Like you'll notice some guys are like, if they take good steps, so they're always in the right spot. But usually when they pick up movement, that's when you're like, these dudes are well coached. So, but playing hard and being well coached whenever it's like picking up movements, that's usually what I look for. Because if I can put those guys on tape picking stuff up, and show my guys like, hey, look at what these dudes are doing. Like, see how they're picking this up. That helps me out the next week. So,
Coach, man, it's been a blast. I love listening to guys. I know the 1 year I got to be an O-line coach at Jenks, when we went into the finals, it was the 2 runs on the play sheet, man. It was inside zone and it was power. So I've been in those shoes, and I know, we kind of had to sit around for 2 weeks preparing for it. And you kind of start second guessing yourself. You're like, man, do we got enough offense? But, like you said, we'd practiced it enough. We'd seen every look. The kids knew the different tags and things that we could add to it. And, and we went into it really, really confident. So I've always been a huge proponent of it. To me, just having those 2 schemes, it's plenty. And when you window dress it, no doubt about it. So it was cool to listen to it, man, and cool to see it work at the college level too.
yeah, well, I appreciate you guys having me on, just to kind of be able to talk about this stuff, because I like listening to what you guys are doing and hearing other coaches from all different levels, kind of seeing what's going on with that. So it's been really, really enjoyable. Appreciate you guys having me.